The jungle was silent, except for rain hitting leaves and distant artillery echoing through the darkness. American Marines moved carefully through the thick mud of the Pacific Islands during World War II, sweating beneath heavy gear, while watching every shadow between the trees. Somewhere ahead, hidden deep inside the jungle, Japanese soldiers waited silently with rifles aimed toward the trail. Then came the first shot. The crack of a Japanese Arisaka rifle shattered the silence as bullets ripped through branches above the Marines. Men dove into mud instantly while machine gun fire erupted across the jungle. Screams echoed through the trees as the ambush exploded into chaos. But seconds later, another sound answered back. Fast, sharp, relentless. The sound of the M1 Garand. Japanese soldiers had faced American weapons before, but many were stunned the first time they encountered the Garand in full combat. The rifle fired faster than the bolt-action Arisaka, allowing American infantry to unleash rapid streams of fire without manually cycling the weapon after every shot. American Marines rose from cover firing rapidly through jungle, while Japanese troops struggled to answer with slower bolt-action fire. The sound of Garands echoed repeatedly across the battlefield, creating overwhelming pressure during firefights that often lasted only seconds before turning deadly. One American soldier could fire 8 rounds rapidly before needing to reload. Many Japanese soldiers could barely fire half as fast. And in jungle warfare, speed meant survival. Battles across islands like Guadalcanal, Saipan, and Iwo Jima forced soldiers into brutal close-range combat, where visibility was poor and death could appear from any direction without warning. In those conditions, weapons mattered enormously. Japanese troops respected the Arisaka rifle for its reliability and accuracy. It was strong, durable, and deadly in trained hands. But against the M1 Garand, many Japanese soldiers found themselves badly outmatched during fast-moving engagements. The Garand changed battlefield momentum. American soldiers no longer needed to stop after every shot to operate a bolt manually. They could maintain constant pressure while advancing through enemy positions. Entire Japanese squads suddenly faced volumes of rifle fire they were not prepared for. Some veterans later described the sound itself as frightening, rapid, continuous, aggressive, a wall of bullets tearing through the battlefield. On one Pacific island, Marines advanced carefully through dense jungle terrain, while Japanese defenders waited inside hidden bunkers covered by vegetation. The silence lasted for hours until sudden machine gun fire exploded across the American line. Soldiers hit the ground instantly, while mortar shells blasted dirt and trees into the air. The Japanese defense was perfectly positioned, but then the Marines counterattacked. Garands opened fire almost immediately. Rifle shots echoed rapidly across the jungle as American troops pushed forward through smoke and mud. Japanese soldiers attempting to reposition suddenly faced overwhelming firepower from multiple directions at once. The speed shocked them. Again and again, Marines fired rapidly while moving between cover. Japanese defenders who expected pauses between enemy shots instead encountered nonstop rifle fire smashing through bunker openings and defensive positions. The battle turned brutal within minutes. Flamethrowers ignited bunkers. Grenades exploded through trenches. Smoke covered the battlefield while wounded soldiers screamed through the chaos. Yet beneath all the noise, one sound remained constant: the sharp crack of the Garand. American commanders quickly recognized how valuable the rifle had become during Pacific combat. Infantry units armed heavily with Garands often maintained superior suppressive fire against Japanese forces using mostly bolt-action rifles. During assaults on fortified positions, that advantage sometimes determined whether attacks succeeded or failed. Machine guns and mortars became even more important, as Japanese units attempted to slow advancing American infantry before Garand-equipped troops closed the distance. On islands across the Pacific, American troops increasingly dominated firefights through sheer firepower and coordination. The industrial strength of the United States allowed enormous numbers of Garands to reach frontline units, while Japan struggled with shortages of equipment, ammunition, and experienced soldiers. And the war kept getting worse for Japan. By 1944, American offensives pushed steadily closer toward the Japanese homeland itself. Massive naval battles shattered sections of Japan's fleet, while American bombers attacked factories, ports, and supply lines across the Pacific. Meanwhile, Infantry battles became even bloodier. At Battle of Peleliu, Marines fought through caves and fortified ridges under horrifying conditions. Temperatures became unbearable. Water shortages tortured soldiers on both sides. Japanese defenders launched desperate counterattacks, while American troops advanced yard by yard through deadly gunfire. The Garand became a lifeline. Soldiers trusted the rifle completely. Mud covered it. Rain soaked it. Some Marines later admitted the rifle gave them psychological confidence during combat, because they knew they could fire rapidly if ambushed suddenly at close range. Japanese soldiers noticed that confidence too. Again and again, they encountered American infantry advancing aggressively behind heavy rifle fire. The war transformed entire islands into nightmares of smoke, explosions, and shattered trees. Bodies lay across beaches blackened by artillery, while aircraft roared overhead and naval guns blasted coastlines apart for hours before invasions even began. Then the infantry moved in, and once the fighting closed the rifle range, the Garand often became one of the deadliest weapons on the battlefield. Still, Japanese soldiers fought fiercely despite the disadvantages. Many launched suicidal charges or defended isolated positions long after battles were clearly lost. Others hid inside tunnels and caves waiting for opportunities to strike advancing Americans unexpectedly. The fighting became savage, personal, terrifying. But even as Japan's soldiers struggled against America's growing firepower, an even greater storm was approaching across the Pacific. Because soon, American forces would bring not only superior rifles, but overwhelming air power, naval dominance, and destruction beyond anything Japan had yet experienced. The rain kept falling across the Pacific jungle as exhausted Japanese soldiers moved carefully through mud-filled trenches. Somewhere beyond the trees, American Marines were advancing again. The sound of artillery thundered in the distance while smoke drifted through shattered palm trees and burned-out bunkers. Every man waiting in those defensive positions already understood the danger approaching toward them. The Americans were bringing Garands. Japanese troops tightened their grip around their Arisaka rifles, while officers prepared for another assault. Many soldiers respected the Arisaka. It was accurate, durable, and dependable even in brutal jungle conditions. But the Pacific War was changing rapidly, and many frontline troops had already witnessed the terrifying speed of the American M1 Garand during close combat. The difference became deadly once battles reached short range. One Japanese veteran later described hearing entire waves of Garand fire exploding through the jungle like continuous hammer strikes. American soldiers could maintain pressure without stopping to cycle a bolt after every shot. In the chaos of battle, that speed often overwhelmed defensive positions before Japanese troops could react effectively. Then came another attack. American artillery slammed into the jungle first. Explosions tore through trees while dirt and shattered branches rained down across trenches. Machine gun fire followed immediately afterward as Marines pushed through smoke-covered terrain beneath covering fire. Japanese defenders waited nervously. Then they saw them, American infantry, moving aggressively through the jungle with Garands raised toward enemy positions. The Marines advanced quickly between explosions while rifle fire erupted nonstop around them. Japanese soldiers opened fire immediately, but the battlefield already felt different. The Garands answered back instantly. Fast rifle shots echoed through the jungle from multiple directions at once. American troops fired while advancing, kneeling, moving, and reloading rapidly before continuing the attack again. Japanese defenders attempting to reposition suddenly found bullets smashing through trees, sandbags, and bunker openings almost continuously. The pressure became overwhelming. Some Japanese soldiers later admitted they struggled to determine how many Americans were actually attacking because the volume of Garand fire sounded far larger than the number of troops advancing. The rapid shots created confusion and panic during some engagements, especially inside dense jungle terrain where visibility remained limited. The battle turned savage within minutes. Grenades exploded through trenches. Flamethrowers ignited bunker entrances. Smoke covered everything. Wounded soldiers screamed beneath nonstop gunfire, while officers shouted desperate orders through the chaos. Yet above all the noise, the Garands continued firing relentlessly. On islands like Guam and Okinawa, Japanese troops increasingly face American units equipped heavily with semi-automatic rifles, machine guns, tanks, artillery, and overwhelming air support. Some Japanese soldiers fought with incredible determination despite knowing the enemy possessed superior firepower in nearly every category. Still, they resisted fiercely. At night, Japanese troops sometimes launched sudden infiltration attacks against American positions, hoping darkness would reduce the Garand's advantage. Soldiers crawled silently through jungle terrain, carrying grenades and bayonets, while attempting to strike Marine camps unexpectedly before dawn. Sometimes the attacks worked. Sometimes they ended in disaster. Because once the Americans reacted, the Garands opened fire again. The rapid shots shattered the darkness, while tracers streaked across the battlefield. Japanese attackers who expected confusion instead encountered walls of rifle fire erupting almost instantly from defensive positions. Many never reached their targets. American Marines grew deeply attached to the Garand during these brutal island campaigns. The rifle earned a reputation for reliability under horrifying combat conditions. Mud soaked it, rain drenched it constantly. Sand covered every surface during beach invasions. Still, the weapon kept functioning. That reliability saved lives. One Marine later described falling into shallow water during combat, before immediately returning fire seconds later without the rifle failing. Others recalled surviving ambushes only because the Garand allowed them to fire rapidly enough to overwhelm attackers before being overrun. Japanese soldiers noticed the confidence American troops carried with the rifle. The Marines pushed aggressively, moved quickly, attacked relentlessly, and every advance came with the constant crack of Garand fire echoing across the battlefield. By late war, Japan's situation had become catastrophic. American forces captured more islands, steadily moving closer toward the Japanese mainland itself. Supply shortages crippled Japanese units, while inexperienced replacements entered combat against battle-hardened American troops backed by overwhelming industrial power. Yet despite impossible odds, Japanese defenders continued fighting fiercely across the Pacific. Inside caves, inside tunnels, inside shattered bunkers surrounded by smoke and fire. American soldiers advancing toward those positions never knew what waited ahead. Some caves had machine guns. Others contained snipers waiting silently for movement outside. Entire hillsides suddenly erupted with gunfire after appearing abandoned moments earlier. The fighting became terrifyingly personal. And once battles closed at short range, the Garand often dominated the encounter. Fast, brutal, relentless. Japanese troops still fought with extraordinary courage, but many increasingly faced enemies equipped with weapons designed for modern firepower and aggressive offensive tactics. Against the rapid fire of the Garand, the slower bolt-action rhythm of the Arisaka often became a deadly disadvantage during chaotic close combat. Still the war continued. Still the islands burned. And somewhere across the Pacific, even larger American invasions were already being prepared. Invasions that would bring even more Marines, more Garands, more destruction, and battles so violent they would shock the entire world.